Because she's a pretty interesting person. And so there's really one concept that's central to the life of Joy Goodman besides just being all around fabulous, and really in the work that she does in the world, and that's really around transformation. And she's a compelling speaker. She's a personal coach. She's an enthusiastic educator. And really, Joy inspires others to be their true selves. And she, of course, is just a joy to be around. So a little bit about Joy's background. She has over 40 years of experience in public education, if you didn't already know that. In 1991, following her own inner guidance, we love it when that happened, Joy participated in an intensive professional public speaking course. And she discovered through that her own passion for self-expression. And at that time, she created an original speaking program for elementary school children, which I did not know that about you, Joy.
Know now.
Add another thing about fabulosity. So there were over 1,000 students who benefited from that program alone, which just makes me very excited. And they learned through Joy's mentorship to face their fears and really become more willing to take risks in other areas of their life through that program. Thank you, Joy, for doing that. I did not know you did that. So this program later became one of Joy's cornerstone programs for people of all ages, and we'll see the benefit of that ourselves today. And it's really around expressing yourself with joy. So Joy has traipsed the terrain of her own soul as she has passionately immersed herself in mind, body, spirit studies. And she's learned to face her fears, and to break free from the fear-based belief of her ancestors, leading to repeated self-transformations. In 2015, and David really alluded to this upstairs, Joy confronted her own personal fear of traveling alone. And so her inner work that she did around that culminated in a 2-week solo trip to Italy, where she reaped the freedom and the joy of saying yes to life. And what a better way to say it in a country than Italy, right? As a result of this life-changing experience, Joy has created and implemented the adult study course entitled Courageous Living Beyond the Fear that teaches others, how to live more fully and freely. So Joy continues to broaden the scope of her audience to include high school and college students, as well as adults and seniors. So let me just tell you what she's currently doing. She's a busy lady. She's currently leading Courageous Women's support groups in her home. She meets with individuals for one-on-one coaching. So if there's anybody who's looking for a coach, that's something that Joy's currently doing. She speaks before a variety of groups like us here. She coaches individuals on public speaking and interview skills. And later this summer, Joy's going to be leading a 6-week-long pre-registered Courageous Living class at the Athletic Club Northeast. I always wave when I drive by, just so you know, Joy. She also conducts monthly heart-to-heart elder groups for those that are housed in senior living facilities. So I don't know how you squeeze that all in, but I'm so thankful that you do. So she's passionate about motivating, inspiring, and awakening people of all ages to their inherent magnificence, their value, and their inner gifts. So join me, please, in giving a very warm welcome to this spectacular woman, and someone I'm very proud to call not only my neighbor, but my friend, a member of our own spiritual community and Women in Truth community here, Joy Goodman.
Okay, see? This was the after all the work that I had to do to get to Italy. That's how I was. You're going to see how I kind of started off. So I'm going to go right into some of the slides. And the triumph to triumph, I won the raffle at a gala that was called the Big Triumph. It was a dinner dance. So I went from that triumph of winning to the triumph of successfully traveling. All right, so just a snippet of my later life. I was in a 27-year relationship with my former husband, and I knew that our learning had come to an end. So a big part of facing some of my fears back then was to move forward with that. So here is the actual divorce decree, and I realized it was important for me to come back to my true identity. So I went back to my birth name, Carol Joy Goodman. So that set me free in many ways, rather than staying in a marriage name where I gave so much of myself away in that marriage. And then I had 2 experiences with car crashes. One in 2003 when I was on the Florida Expressway going to visit a friend. There were like 5 lanes of traffic, and I'm in the fast lane going 70 miles an hour. Everything was fine. I was listening to Wayne Dyer's tape where he was saying that there are angels all around us who want to help, but they cannot interfere in our life unless we give them permission. That's the last thing I heard when I saw from side vision a car coming fast at me this way. And I had nowhere to go because I was already in the far lane. And so I had to move over on instinct. And when I did, my car began to spin on the treads of, you know, where near the walls, so there's treads there. And I remember saying, I need your help now. I'm not ready to die. Save me, help me. And then all I know is there was a big crash, and when I opened my eyes, I didn't know if I was alive or not, because I saw smoke in the car, and I remember saying out loud, I wonder if I'm alive. And so I remember reaching to open the door to see if I could stand up, and I got that far, and then all I know is 3 cars stopped, 3 cars of men. I don't even know how they could stop on that side of the expressway, but they did. And they laid me down, they called the ambulance, and then when the ambulance came, they put me on the stretcher inside. And shortly after they checked my signs and everything was functioning, a policeman came in to that ambulance and he said, I need to ask her some questions. And I said, oh, I know what it was. It was one of the men who stopped. He came in. He said, ma'am, I want you to know I witnessed this whole thing. I was driving and I saw that other car come at you and it sped off. You tell the police I'm waiting outside and I will tell them everything. Right. So that was like the beginning of another miracle. So that car accident, I was saved. Severe trauma came inside of me emotionally. Passed on from my ancestors. My mother never learned to drive until she was like 75, and she needed to learn how to drive because my father was ill and she needed to take him to the hospital. So this reawakened some of that in me. Then in 2012, just riding on Peachtree, I was at a light. Fire engines are going in front of me, and the car behind me thinks the green light means go when you can't go if there are fire engines. So smack, right in the back. Both cars were totaled, and I realized what in me is creating this to happen. Why am I being rear-ended with my car totaled? And this is the second time. I've got to pay attention to what's going on. So when I look back over those 2 incidents, those were times in my life where I was not moving forward on my own in big ways. So I saw it as being shoved by the universe to take action. I didn't like how it showed up, but I took a lot of action. I made so many changes after this first accident. I spoke on my own behalf. I just made many new ones. When this one came, that's when I really did some introspection. So, after these, I had a talk with God, and I said, you know what? I know that these incidences taught me a lot, and yes, I've grown. However, the next time you want me to learn, and I'm willing to learn all the time, I want it to be fun, and I want it to be lighthearted. I said, I'm done with the car. So,
you touched the screen.
What?
When you touched the screen, it made it go back.
Oh, well, how do I make it go? It's not going forward.
Yeah, I don't
Touch the screen
touch the
again.
screen.
Touch the screen.
Oh, yeah, you touched that.
Maybe you do it over there.
On the tablet?
Pull it, pull it.
I'm finding joy here. It's never too much to find joy over and over and over.
Technology.
Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what happens? just practically months later, maybe 2 or 3 months after I'd had that talk with God, I have tickets to go to the Triumph Gala at the Atlanta History Center. So many tickets were sold for this event. And so the raffle was 7 days in a Tuscan villa. This was how I was dressed. And I sat at tables. There were big tables in the Atlanta History Center with fabulous food, music, and dancing. So at the very end of the evening is when Reverend David reached into this pile of raffle tickets, and he's pulling a name out. So, you know, all of us are looking like this, and he looks over towards my side of the room, and he's not looking at me, though, but he's looking in that direction, and he says, "Oh, I'm so glad they are here. But it's really her I like." So when he said he was so glad they were here, I knew it was a couple who had won. So I took, you know, like the menu or the program, and I tune out, so I'm looking down here to see what's going on. And from a far off distance, I know some part of me heard, and the winner is Joy Goodman. But because I had tuned out, I continued to read what was going on until people started hitting me on my back. They're pummeling me. And I said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this to me?" They said, "Joy, you won." I said, "What?" I made them promise 5 times. I said, "I don't want to go up there and be a fool. Are y'all joking with me?" And they said, "No." So I went up to the podium, and my eyes were like unfocused because I was not on the ground anymore. I was like totally altered. And Reverend David said, "Go say a few words to the audience, to the crowd here." And I did something that I swore I would never do. Every time on the Oprah show, when she would give people these grand prizes, what would they do? They'd go up and say, what words? "Oh my God." So that's what I said. I went, "Oh my God." I knew I wouldn't do it. So now, you know, I was given this key to hold. I just laid that down, but I was given this key to hold, and there was a part of me that was so elated to have won, because this was true abundance. And so in order to receive true abundance, we first have to what? Have
Mental equivalent?
the mental equivalent. So it means some part of me already believed in abundance. That was the wonderful part. Then right under that came this awful dread, and I could even feel it creeping up. The dread that I would actually have to travel. I could bring 3 people, that I would have to travel. And that sounds like that's so benign, why wouldn't you want to? Well, here's part of the ancestral story. My mother and her 4 siblings and my grandmother escaped Poland when the Bolsheviks were burning down all the Jewish homes and killing as many people as they could that were Jewish. So when my mother came over as a 5-year-old to America, she was severely traumatized. She never even talked about it to us, so I don't know the extent. But growing up, she taught me to be afraid of everything. Not by saying it always. I watched her live, and she was afraid of life in such a huge way. So you're seeing the part of me here, you're seeing my higher self in recognition of there's been a gift that's just been given to me that's going to change my life. I knew it, I could feel it, but I just didn't know how. So about 2 weeks after I won, I was near the men's bathroom down in the hallway. And does that mean 10 minutes have gone? Okay. I'm trying to structure myself. 10 minutes. I saw Lane Morgan down in the lobby 2 weeks after I'd won. She and I really didn't know one another, but I'd seen her around. So she came up and she said, "Joy, are you excited about winning?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Joy, are you feeling overwhelmed?" And I said, "Yes." And so she was the first one that noticed that something was out of alignment within me. And I began to do some coaching with her. another part, I happened to hear Joel Fatina speak at services. And he is with a big publishing company now. And so he did a workshop in this very room, and I thought, should I go? I don't know, I couldn't quite decide, but something made me go, and I sat right there. And so the first half of the workshop, he's talking about how he was homeless, he didn't have money, and there was a technique that he used in order to create abundance in his life. And what that was a personal intention setting journal. So he talked about this in the second session. And in that journal, what you do is you write a big overarching goal. Joy wants to go to Italy and have a great time. And then each day, I would write the date in the morning, the date of that day, and I would pick 3 tiny little steps that I could take in that day. And then at night, I would come back to the journal and I would check in. So I would say, step 1, did I do it? For example, if it was to call Lexa about her trip to Italy, I would say, yes, called Lexa, left a phone message, period. Or if it was to look up, you know, on Google something about the town I was in, that would be it. All right. So this tool, I started the very day that I heard the workshop, and I did it for 157 days straight.
Wow.
So these are just like how it looked in the journal itself. And these were vision boards that I created. And this is a vision board made by Marilyn, my dear, dear friend back there, to celebrate me. So it was all about moving forward, putting those thoughts in my head and my mind every day. And this sat right across from me when I was on the toilet, it was on the door. Good place. I used it all the time. Great, Lord. And I would say so many people from this congregation came out to help me. At least 100 people combined with here and elsewhere. So I started receiving books to help me. And then, you know, many people said, Joy, if you're going to be going and lifting things, you need to pack light. So I bought this very tiny suitcase, and I bought it a year in advance, and I would just stare at it every day and say, I'm not going to ever get in there. So we communed, that suitcase and I. And here was Lane Morgan, where I started the coaching. All right, after that, after I won the gala, the trip to Italy, my name was entered in another raffle. And I won this raffle, which was with Burnett Sherman, who was sitting right here in the second row. And Burnett, you know, at that time, she had a space upstairs that she rented. And I remember you were doing a lot of life coaching at the time and helping people with their life. But you also had demonstrated to me one time before that you spoke to spirits on the other side. You did channeling work. So when I won this session, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I wanted my mother to come in. I wanted to face her. I wanted to heal things that I couldn't do by myself totally. I had done so much work. So in that session, my mother came in. She brought her younger sister in with her, because my mother was afraid to face me. She just didn't know how to do it. So she brought her sister, and they sat in 2 chairs right across from me. And Burnett said, Joy, they're both here. And this time, your mother's going to do all the talking. My mother's sister used to always talk for her. Your mother's going to do all the talking. And the minute she said that, my heart, it was like it just expanded, 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 popped. There was just like love, and tears were already, I hadn't heard a thing, and the tears were flowing because I could feel my mother's spirit in the room. She talked through Burnett for 45 minutes. She affirmed everything I felt as a child. She didn't know how to mother me. She was afraid that because I was a girl, she was afraid that she could lose me if any of her insecurities were ever made known, her panic, her fear. So I was like, you know, I felt like I wasn't wanted. And she explained that in this reading that was so powerful. And there was great forgiveness. I had already forgiven her. I just wanted her to know that I had. So what she told Burnett to tell me in the very closing part, she said, tell Joy not to use my life as an example. Tell her to move through her fear and set herself free. Those were the words that reading ended with. And those were the words that empowered me even more to break the cycle of fear that had been passed down, to break it, to break the chains, to find freedom. Yes. All right, so I did a lot of inner work in the year that passed before the actual trip. I did rituals. I spoke in front of the congregation here 2 times because I wanted everyone to be on that trip with me. I wanted you to know my terror, and I wanted you to know that I saw freedom, and that no matter how afraid I was committed to going for the freedom all the way. So the congregation supported me in that and rose with me for that. This is day 157, departure day on April 7th. Today I leave for Italy. I surrender, let go, and allow. I have set and accomplished so many little goals over the last 5 months. One step at a time, I have created the body of this trip. I have been assisted by many. I have grown tremendously by this process. I have moved past many fear-based beliefs and old, outdated ways. I am so grateful for winning the trip to Tuscany and for all those who are part of this magnificent unfolding, expansion, and evolving. Italy, here I come, ready to soak in your beauty, your people, your food, your love, your joy of life. I engage so easily with so many each day, as each day unfolds magically, holding infinite gifts, happiness, freedom, full expression, joy, self-wonder, and I just wrote all the other qualities. 21 weeks of concentrated planning with this self-contract. Excellent job, Joy. And so along that path, I still wasn't sure, do I take 3 people? My spirit continued to talk to me. Joy, this is not about taking people. Joy, this is about your journey, facing your fear on your own. You've got to go alone. And when I first heard that guidance, I said, no, you've asked too much of me. This is too big, too big. But the voice continued. It continued, Joy, freedom for yourself, do it, do it. And one day, in the presence of a mentor, I said, do you think that I, Joy Goodman, can really do this? It was my 10-year-old scared self that was asking, you really, really, really think I can do it? And she said, Joy, I know you can. So together, we held our hands up in the air, like 2 hands facing 2 hands. And I said, I, Joy Goodman, in the presence of the divine, do declare that I will go to Italy by myself. And I added a 2nd week. Once I did that, that's where all the help started pouring in from travel agents saying, let me help you plan, from just all kinds of experiences. So this was on my first day in arriving in the town of Monciano. This couple, they didn't speak any English at all, but they welcomed me into their home. And I'm already drinking some homemade chocolate drinks. And he poured from the pepe. So he poured that into the glass, and when I'm drinking the pepe, I realize what pepe means. It's short for pepper, because my mouth was like hot. This was at the same house. Just a little village, and food I loved, and this was the best food in town. It was a 5-star, so that is just some of it. And this is the same woman making authentic meatballs and giving me some to taste because I started finding my way to their place just about every day. Instant reward. Yeah, the gelato, that was so good. So I was told that in the villa where I was staying, it was right in the heart of a small village, and I was the only American. I was told that there was a fresh bread truck that came every single day. And I would hear the horn and I could go out and get the bread. Well, I never heard the horn. So on this particular day, I'm walking into the street and I see this old Italian lady with the babushka on her head, and she's holding armloads of bread. They're like, maybe 5 loaves. So I said, perdoname, or something in Italian. Oh, dove pane. That basically means where bread.
Right.
And so she didn't hesitate. She took one of those loaves out and she puts it in my hands. So that was a gift. That was a true gift. Okay. So I'm going to stop with the slides now. I came back from this Italy trip a changed person. The fear, yes, I still have fear, but not like what I had. I moved through so much. When I came back, when I was talking with Lane, she said, Joy, you have to take the joy from Italy and ground it into the Joy who lives in Atlanta. And she said, in one way that I see you doing that is to have a big celebration. And I see you creating a slideshow. So for 2 months, almost every day, I went to the Apple store and they helped me create the slideshow. And then she said, you could have it here, it could be an Italian potluck. And I said, but who will come, Lane? She said, Joy. I said, but maybe only 10 people will come. She said, Joy. That's what goes through my mind sometimes. She said, Joy, people love you, they will come. So I just had to go on her confidence, because, yeah. So that night, I showed the slideshow, and 140 people showed up.
Wow.
And I was blown. It was just amazing. And I told my full story to them, and I was witnessed. And I allowed myself to be open and vulnerable so that people could see all of me. So that was the big taking off. And after that, that's when I started focusing on what am I to do with this journey. With all the gifts that I had come in with, all the learnings before that, and now it was about teaching courageous living. So that has influenced my life. In the next part, I'd like to, yes, Val, if you'll pass out some of these on your side, and if you'll pass them out on this side, and turn to page 2. I want to involve you, because if you turn to page 2, there's a place where your name would go. And we don't necessarily need to fill it in, but it says Courageous Living With, and then that would be you. So once you get that. Okay, off the bat here, I'm not the only one who's taken courageous steps. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear something that you have done at some point in your life when you had been afraid, but you did it. So think about what that might be. And then let me hear.
Drove across country by myself last year from California back to Georgia. It was in a convertible. It was great.
What steps
72 years old I was like.
72 years took a cross-country drive by yourself in a convertible. How'd you do it? What were the steps you took, Margie?
I had to do it. I asked other people to go. Nobody could come. This one right here, your cousin. She was about to come, but she didn't quite make it. But anyway, I, scared something happened on the side of the road. Always got in though before dark and just enjoyed it. It was sunshine and breeze, and it was wonderful.
So something
Had a great
happened
time.
once you started.
Yeah,
the
oh, it
trip,
was
and
just, this is great.
That's
The absorption
often what happens.
of the universe, all the sights that I saw, trains that were over 100 cars long on the side of the road, and you could see the whole train, the whole train.
Did you
Wow.
tell them
Wide
that the car
open.
broke down? Yeah, no, because you had to take care of the situation.
I don't remember the car broke down.
What did
I
break
have
down?
Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Nothing.
Who else had something, okay?
So in 2004, I decided to spend 3 months in Europe. And then I was blessed to have a place in Rome to stay. So I ended up staying for 6 months. But my experience was there were angels everywhere. I mean, whenever I needed anything, it showed up. And that happens to me when I'm traveling. And I think it's because I'm more present when I travel, because you sort of have to be,
Yes.
you know, to navigate travel.
right.
But I mean, I remember once in Scotland, this hooded, tall being walking towards me, and there was nobody else, and it was dark. And I thought, okay, God. And it turned out to be this amazing man that helped me get unlost, that invited me to go to church with him the next day.
Wow.
And it was, you know, I mean, I could just tell you, angels just came out of everywhere.
Yes.
And so if you have never traveled alone, you have to do it. You just have to do it.
Yes. Okay, Alexa.
In 19